Imagine being a kid, trapped on a farm with a predator lurking in the shadows. That was my childhood. My Uncle Wally was the worst kind of man. The kind that smiles at family gatherings, then turns into a monster when no one is watching. I grew up on my grandfather's farm, the last kid left to help out while my cousins escaped into their own lives. My uncle was only 8 years older than me, but he was already a nightmare. Each day was the same: bales of hay to lift, cows to feed, and always that lurking presence. When the adults were busy, Wally would pounce, preying on innocence like it meant nothing. We learned quickly to stick together and watch each other's backs. There were whispers among us, terrified whispers. Groping turned into something worse. We were only kids, just trying to get through chores. But the threat was real, and it kept us bonding tighter. We came up with a buddy system, but it didn't always work. I remember one cousin learning to run fast, always scanning for Wally's shadow. Fear wrapped its hands around our childhoods, squeezing tighter every day. When I turned 14, it all changed. The farm was sold. My grandparents moved to the city. We escaped that life, but the memories stuck like thorny vines wrapped around our hearts. I went into the army. My cousins took different paths, and Wally's life spiraled out of control. From jail time to homelessness to an illness that left him an outcast. He thought the past was buried and we would forget what he had done. But we never forgot. Years passed. Time didn't heal all wounds, but it made them quiet, tucked away in the corners of our minds. And then the call came. Grandpa had passed away, and with his death came a family reunion. The gathering felt bittersweet, filled with laughter and tears. But then, when I spotted him, a knot in my gut twisted. Wally was there, a ghost of the man we had once feared. I exchanged glances with my cousins who had suffered the same as I did. The laughter faded as we gathered around, whispering, sharing that familiar tension. "He thinks we've forgotten," one cousin sneered. "This time it's our turn." Hearts raced as we plotted, the fear of the past igniting a flame in our chests. My cousin Mark, who never faced Wally's wrath, stepped in. "I'll lure him away," he offered, barely containing his smirk. It was a risk. Could he handle this? But the need for justice burned in all of us. We had never faced him together as adults before, and now it felt like the only way to confront the monster was to gather our strength and show him the consequences of his actions. Mark strolled towards the river, casual, seemingly unconcerned. Wally, unaware of our scheme, followed with a swagger, confidence from years of dodging what he had done. The Mississippi stretched before us, the water slow-moving but deep. My cousins and I took our positions, our anger simmering just beneath the surface. As soon as Wally was close enough, we sprang into action. "You think you can just show up?" I shouted. His eyes widened, recognition dawning too late as he realized this reunion was not about family ties. "What do you want?" he stammered, but it was too late to back out now. With that, the chaos erupted. My cousin Jake swung a belt, making contact with Wally's side. He yelped, but the sound only fueled our fury. We had long waited for this moment, and it was more satisfying than we could have imagined. Wally turned and sprinted towards the river, but the water was his only escape. "Swim, Wally! If you want to live, swim!" Mark yelled, adrenaline surging through us. But Wally hesitated, glancing back, eyes wide with fear. "You can at least apologize," one of my cousins shouted after him. The past hung heavily on his shoulders, and he showed it through his hesitation. But when he realized he had no choice, he jumped, splashing into the Mississippi. The cold water enveloped him, dragging him down for a moment before he resurfaced, gasping for air. The sight was surreal. Wally was in the same water we had once played in as kids, now transformed into a chaotic battleground. "You're going to drown!" I couldn't help but shout, even as a part of me felt guilt creeping in. The boy who once lived in fear became a man seeking vengeance. But the lines of right and wrong blurred. My mother's voice broke through the noise, frantic and angry. "Let him out, let him go," she cried, rushing towards us. We ignored her pleas, holding firm. "You didn't believe us when we needed you, and now it's too late," one cousin hollered, his voice laced with pain. Wally struggled, pushing against the current, fully clothed and climbing the water's invisible wall. "I'm sorry," he screamed, but it didn't matter. We knew he was empty words. He had hurt us, and now we had him right where we wanted him. Surprisingly, against all odds, he made it to the other side, flailing and gasping, but he reached safety. We stared in shock, not believing he had done it. But even relief couldn't wash away the sins he carried with him. As he stood on the bank, dripping and shaken, an unspoken understanding passed between us cousins. The memories hung unspoken in the air as Wally turned and walked away. There were secrets in our family, buried under layers of shame. We would never speak of this day, nor bring up the past again. Yet something had changed. The weight of our actions settled on our shoulders, heavy yet liberating. Wally may have crossed the river, but he would always be haunted. Just like us, we would carry our scars, but today was different. The past had caught up with him, leaving us with a taste of justice. We finally felt free, even if just for a moment. As the sun began to set over the Mississippi, casting golden hues across the water, we stood united. The river would hide our secrets as we watched Wally disappear into the distance. A reminder of our childhood horrors finally moved away from us. The reunion was over, but the bond between us had rekindled. A bond forged in the fires of shared trauma, now turned to strength. We would return to our lives. Imagine being an old lady, just minding your own business in line, and a man suddenly cuts in front of you. Just like that, your day turns into a playful battle of wits. That's exactly what happened to me last Tuesday at the grocery store, and let me tell you, it was quite the adventure. I stood there, my little bag of oranges clutched in my hand, when I noticed the audacious man in a hurry, completely ignoring the line of people waiting patiently. I'm a little hard of hearing, but I added some volume and said, "I can see that you're in a big hurry. I'm not too busy myself, so go ahead of me." His head snapped around, his face turning a bright shade of red. It was the kind of red you see in ripe tomatoes. He looked startled, like a deer caught in headlights. Behind me, I waved to the other folks waiting in line, who were now entirely focused on our little showdown. You could feel the tension in the air as they exchanged glances, some trying hard not to chuckle. I tilted my head slightly, my gray curls bouncing, and gave him my best grandmotherly smile. "Oh, please," I continued, not missing a beat. "I insist. You look like you've had quite a long day." Every word dripped with sweetness, but there was a hint of mischief in my tone. He stammered, looking back at the line, then at me. No, it's fine. Really, you can go ahead," he mumbled, his voice barely above a whisper, embarrassment doing a number on him. "Nonsense," I exclaimed, raising my voice just a little, relishing the attention we had drawn. "Let me tell you, darling, back in my day, we knew how to wait patiently. You know, the last time I cut in front of someone, it was to get a good seat at the theater. I just had to see that show with the dancing rabbits. You wouldn't believe how adorable they were." There was a ripple of laughter from behind me. I could feel the energy shift as people relaxed, some nodding in agreement as if to say, "Yes, we've all been there." The man shifted from one foot to the other, clearly unsure how to exit this awkward moment. "Oh, really? Dancing rabbits?" His face softened, realizing I wasn't angry. "Absolutely. The younger folks these days wouldn't know what to do with themselves. Back then, we looked for entertainment everywhere. Now everyone is glued to their screens, right?" I gestured to the line, and the people chuckled again, some even nodding. It felt good to see them enjoying this. The cashier was quietly watching, suppressing a grin. The man cleared his throat, finally relaxing. "Well, maybe I could use a few dancing rabbits in my life," he admitted, a slight smile creeping on his lips. "Oh, dear," I exclaimed, waving my hand. "You must be a little more adventurous. Have you ever tried knitting? It can be quite calming, you know. Why, just the other day, I made a scarf for my great-grandchild. It was sparkly pink, just like her." My voice was animated, and I leaned in slightly as if sharing a big secret. "Knitting, huh?" he said, his tension easing. "I'll stick to juggling, thank you very much." The line began to move, but I wasn't letting my new friend off the hook that easily. "Juggling? Well, what do you juggle? Eggs? Or maybe those little oranges I've got here?" I held up my bag, and that made some of the folks chuckle again. At this, he laughed. "Definitely not eggs. I think I'd rather drop an orange. Less mess, you know." "That's a smart plan. Messy cleanups are for amateurs," I replied, feeling a surge of warmth as I made eye contact with others in line. The man looked behind him, realizing he really had cut in line, and said, "I really am sorry about that," as he gestured to the growing number of people waiting behind him. "Oh, don't worry about it, sweetie. At least you're making friends here." It felt incredible to watch his posture relax even more. Just then the cashier called out, "Next!" and my heart raced with anticipation. It was our turn. In a grand gesture, I stepped forward and said, "Go ahead now." "Thank you, ma'am," he replied, his voice sincere now. As I slid up to the checkout, the cashier smiled brightly. "You sure know how to handle a situation, ma'am. He won't forget that in a hurry." "Oh, I hope not," I chuckled, exchanging a knowing look with the cashier. "You see, I might be old, but I still remember how to have some fun. And it's just too easy to mess with someone's head, especially when they think they're in such a rush. You've got to give them a little taste of their own medicine, you know." The cashier nodded, still laughing. She rang up my oranges, and we both enjoyed the moment of shared laughter. As I finished paying, I turned to the man who had cut in line, now waiting patiently while I completed my purchase. "Remember, dear, life is too short to rush. Be kind, slow down, and maybe, just maybe, learn to juggle." He chuckled, shaking his head in disbelief. "You really are something else. And you, dear, are learning a lesson today." He flashed me a warm smile, a pleasant gleam reflecting off his eyes. Then, just as I collected my bag and strolled toward the exit, I heard him say, "I'll definitely remember this moment." That made me feel like a little girl again, filled with joy. Outside, the weather was lovely, and I took a deep breath as I stepped into the sunshine. It felt good to have a little fun and brighten someone's day. As I walked to my car, I thought about how interactions, even brief ones, can change everything. I took my time and savored each moment, just as I had in line. That little encounter would stay with me, and I hoped it would stick with him too. In a busy world, kindness can be simple but so powerful. So the next time you see a long line, or maybe someone getting ahead a bit too freely, remember my story. You never know how it can unfold. You might just find that serving some kindness and a dash of humor can turn a potentially frustrating moment into a delightful memory. And who knows, maybe that man would think twice before rushing ahead next time. Maybe he would learn to smile at the unexpected moments, like an old lady with oranges and a penchant for playful repartee. Each encounter is a little chance to connect and share a laugh, transforming our days into something special. Feel free to half joke about juggling with someone, or decide that kindness is more important than an ordinary errand. A little wit and warmth can go a long way, leaving us all with something to remember, especially if it involves dancing rabbits. Imagine sitting in a class where every word from the professor feels like a slap to the face. You dread it. Each moment on that cramped metal chair seems to stretch into eternity. That's what it was like for me and my classmates. Our professor, Mr. Hargrove, was a nightmare. Rude, cruel, and always ready with a sexist comment. He seemed to thrive on making us uncomfortable, but we had to endure it. I knew I would need one more class with him to graduate. So I played nice, put on my best behavior, and just counted down the days until I could escape. As the semester dragged on, my disdain for him grew. It was soul-sucking to sit through his lectures, filled with sarcasm and condescension. But I forced myself to stay focused, determined not to give him the satisfaction of seeing me struggle. In between classes, my friends and I would often vent about him. One day, during lunch, 3 of us gathered at our usual spot in the cafeteria. The table was noisy, filled with laughter and slurping, but as we started to talk about Mr. Hargrove, the energy shifted. Sarah took a deep breath and leaned in, casting a glance over her shoulders as if to make sure no one was eavesdropping. "You won't believe what he did to me," she whispered. My eyebrows shot up. Sarah had been in his class. She looked nervous, so I urged her to continue. "It's insane," she said, glancing around again. "He's been acting really weird. I'm the only one in his class right now, and he keeps flirting with me. He talks about personal stuff about his wife. It feels so uncomfortable. And yesterday, he touched my arm. It was so wrong." My stomach sank. I felt a wave of anger rise within me. This was not surprising, not at all. It was classic Mr. Hargrove. I leaned closer as I spoke, my voice low but firm. "You have to report him, Sarah. You need to go to Title IX. With your texts and what he's doing, they'll have proof. He can't get away with this. Her eyes were wide, filled with fear. What if I'm not believed? What if he gets angry? I don't want to ruin his life. This isn't about ruining his life, I insisted. This is about stopping his behavior. If he's doing this to you, who else is he doing it to? Maybe by talking about it, we can finally get him to pay for the things he's done. The conversation hung there in the air, thick with fear and uncertainty. Sarah looked down at her plate, her fork tapping against it. What if I fail? She whispered. You won't, I assured her. I'll stand with you. We can both go and talk to them. We can tell them about everything he's done. You deserve to feel safe in that class. Just think about how many people you can help by speaking out. A few days later, Sarah texted me, and my heart raced as I opened her message. I did it. I reported him. Relief washed over me, but I knew we had a long way to go. Weeks passed. I often thought about Sarah's report but kept my distance from the chaos. As I walked through campus, my anxiety flared up because I knew I'd have to face Mr. Hargrove soon. It was time for my last class with him, and the thought made me uneasy. What if he knew what happened? What if he was angry? I prepared myself for what was sure to be a nightmare of a class. When the first day finally came, I entered the classroom and noticed the usual grim decor. But something felt different. Empty chairs surrounded me, and that should have been a warning. The clock ticked loudly in the silence. I waited, heart pounding in my chest, for what felt like an eternity. Then suddenly the door opened, and a woman I hadn't seen before stepped inside. Good morning, everyone, she said brightly. I'm Professor Lee. Mr. Hargrove is no longer with us. My heart stopped. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. I exchanged glances with my classmates, our eyes wide with disbelief. What do you mean he's gone? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He resigned a few days ago, Professor Lee explained, her voice soothing. Let's just say it was a decision made for the betterment of the students. I felt my heart race again. This was it. He had been forced out, and somewhere inside me, a spark of satisfaction ignited. Was it related to any reports? I asked, my curiosity overpowering my caution. Professor Lee hesitated and then nodded. I can't share details, but yes, there were concerns raised about his conduct. It's important for us to maintain a safe environment for all students. I felt lighter somehow, like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. It felt surreal. This was the end of Mr. Hargrove, but it was also the beginning of something for many of us. I found myself wondering about Sarah. I pulled out my phone, unable to contain my excitement. I quickly sent her a message. Have you heard? He's gone. He resigned. Moments later, my phone buzzed with her reply. No way. Are you serious? I could practically hear her disbelief through the screen. Yes. New professor now. She replied with a series of excited emojis, and I couldn't help but smile. It felt like a victory, not just for me, but for everyone who had to endure his awful teaching. As the semester continued under Professor Lee, I noticed another change in the atmosphere. The classroom felt welcoming. Students began to speak up more, sharing their thoughts without fear of being mocked like before. There was camaraderie, and little by little, I could see the shadows lifting from my classmates' faces, relief washing over them as we learned in a respectful environment. But still, I was curious about what had happened to Mr. Hargrove. Had he really just left without a fight? Or was it something deeper? One casually sunny afternoon, while walking past the library, I bumped into my friend Josh. Hey, did you hear? He said, a mischievous glint in his eyes. What? Mr. Hargrove was apparently put on leave after a series of complaints. I think your friend's report was a huge part of it. I felt my heart race again. The pieces started to come together. This wasn't just a spontaneous resignation. It was all because of us. I beamed with pride. It feels like justice, doesn't it? Josh smiled back, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like something was finally right in the world. As spring rolled into campus, life felt vibrant. I enjoyed each day, attending classes filled with laughter and respect. But Mr. Hargrove loomed in the back of my mind. A part of me still wanted to know what had happened to him. Did he realize the impact he had? Soon after the semester ended, I learned the truth. Word spread like wildfire through campus. I overheard students in the student lounge talking about a rumor that Mr. Hargrove had found a new job at a lesser-known college. "Some people never change," one girl said with a sigh. "Let's hope he's only a chapter now, not a whole book in our lives," her friend replied. I couldn't agree more. We had experienced his cruelty, but now it was over. I hoped he would think twice before trying to impose his dangerous behavior again. Knowing that somebody had to stand against people like him made me proud. It was worth it. Sarah was brave to report it, and by standing with her, I had played a part too. Mr. Imagine your mother falling for a con man's story, buying a convenience store that was worth half what she paid for it. That's exactly what happened to my mum in the early 1990s. She believed this man when he claimed he had cancer and only months to live. He showed her fake tax returns, tricking her into believing the shop had strong sales. But in reality, the business was struggling, running at about 30% of what he claimed. After 3 to 4 long years of hard work, my mum had to sell that shop at a big loss. That was the end of her dream. But what I didn't know was that my mate Bart was cooking up a plan for revenge against the con man. I lived overseas at the time, so I had no clue what Bart was up to. Last year, my mum finally decided to tell me the whole story about how Bart got back at the liar who hurt her. Bart and I had been friends since we were both 4 years old, and he knew my mum well. After the shop was sold and my mum moved away, Bart started to develop a relationship with the con man. He pretended to be friendly, getting close to him as if he wanted to help him sell his home one day. The thing is, the con man never had cancer. He was a fraud, pure and simple. As time passed, he decided to downsize since his kids had grown up. Bart had been preparing for this moment. One day, Bart got the contract to sell the con man's house. This was it. Bart had access to the con man's property, and he wasted no time checking things out after an open house. He wandered around the house, looking for anything valuable. While exploring, he stumbled upon a sealed box in the crawl space of the ceiling. It looked heavy, and Bart's curiosity piqued. He carefully cut open the bottom flap, thinking maybe he could reseal it later without anyone noticing. What he found inside made his heart race, over 2 kilograms of gold bars. Bart couldn't believe his luck. He knew this gold could change everything, but he had to be smart. There was a risk involved. He decided he had to switch the gold out with something else, something that wouldn't raise any alarms. A mate of his, who made fishing sinkers, agreed to help him out. That guy could easily cast lead bars that looked similar in weight to the gold. Over the next week, Bart worked hard planning the perfect switcheroo. He pretended to be busy and fully engaged in selling the house, all while secretly prepping. He collected the lead and made bars to match the gold's size and weight. It took a bit of effort, but he did it. The clever bit was, Bart left the top layer of gold in place, securing it just enough to make the box look untouched from the outside. Finally, the day arrived when the house was officially sold, and the con man packed up to move out. Bart smiled to himself as the con man closed the door behind him. 3 months later, the con man had no idea that his precious gold had vanished. He never mentioned a word about it. In the meantime, Bart sold the gold and was able to give my mum a contribution. He insisted she keep it a secret, even from me. But as time went on, she couldn't hold it in anymore. Last year, when we were catching up, she finally spilled the beans. I remember her excited voice when she said, "You won't believe what Bart did." I listened in disbelief as she shared how Bart had helped her. The money made a real difference, around 35,000 Australian dollars. It was a huge relief for her, although still short of what she initially lost. We both laughed and cried when I realized how Bart's clever plan had not only helped her financially, but also brought back a sense of justice. The whole thing felt like a movie, a well-scripted twist of fate. Bart had played his part perfectly. It was clear to me that this was more than just a financial boost for my mum. It was a way of letting her know that she wasn't alone. As we reminisced, I thought about my mother's journey after selling the shop. She worked hard to recover, finding other opportunities to make a living. She picked herself up and learned not to trust too easily. The neighborhood, once vibrant with her spirit, had become a reminder of that experience. Yet even in that struggle, she began to bloom again. She surrounded herself with supportive friends and family. Slowly but surely, she rebuilt her life. Bart had always been there for me too, even during my years. Imagine trusting someone with your deepest secrets, sharing every part of your life, only to discover they are hiding something terrible. That was my life with Max. He wasn't just my best friend, he was like a brother to me. We grew up together, sharing everything from toys to teenage dreams. But one day, I stumbled onto a darker side of him. I discovered he was preying on much younger girls, using his charm to manipulate them. When I found out he had grabbed one girl hard enough to leave a bruise, I decided enough was enough. I had proof, screenshots, videos, voice recordings, and it was time to confront him. So I set up a plan that would reveal his true nature in front of our friends. The sun was starting to set, casting a warm glow in my living room. I set up the gaming consoles and put out snacks on the table. The scent of popcorn filled the room. I could hear the sound of laughter and chatter as my friends started to arrive. I smiled, trying to shake off the rising tension inside me. Max arrived last, clapping me on the shoulder as he walked in. "What's up, bro?" he said, grinning. I gestured to the drinks. "Made some special apple juice for tonight, got it straight from the store." I knew he wouldn't question it. We settled in, playing different games as the night rolled on. The atmosphere was lively, filled with shouts and joyful banter. I poured Max a can of the apple juice and watched him take a big sip. I had told him it was an alcoholic drink to set the tone. He took my word for it, believing it was stronger than it really was. I kept my eyes on him, the way he fumbled with the controller, laughing a little too loud at every joke. The moment felt perfect. The laughter faded slightly when I decided it was time to reveal my presentation. I connected my laptop to the TV, breathing deeply as I prepared to confront him. The images and videos were ready to play on the big screen. I felt the tension, the air thickening around us as the first slide appeared. I set the mood with a catchy tune, something upbeat yet slightly foreboding. Max's smile wavered as he saw the slides. "What's this?" he asked, confusion flickering across his face. "Just a little something I put together," I replied, the calmness in my voice surprising even me. The first few slides featured innocent images of us all having fun at various gatherings. Everyone laughed, but I could see Max starting to sweat. Then came the girls. Faces flashed across the screen, smiles replaced by their expressions of discomfort. One girl, Lisa, I remembered well. A bright girl he had bullied several times just to push boundaries. She had blocked him after he crossed a line, not that he ever acknowledged it. I pressed play on the video, and his laugh died instantly as he recognized her voice. The recording was raw, full of her uncertainty as she said no multiple times, his denial creeping in between each plea. "Bro, this isn't me," he muttered under his breath, panic creeping into his tone. I turned up the volume, letting the audience feel the weight of the moment. "I didn't do that," he said, his bravado fading. I continued, showing the photos of the bruises and broken trust. "You can't just ignore what you've done," I said, looking him straight in the eyes. His friends shifted uncomfortably in their seats, glances darting between us. The energy in the room shifted, laughter replaced by unease. Max stumbled over his words, trying to find a way out of this mess. "You must have hacked my accounts. I would never do this. I swear." I couldn't let him escape. I pressed on, showcasing voice recordings of him trying to flirt with girls after they had made it clear they weren't interested. "See, you keep pushing, Max," I exclaimed, my voice steady even as my heart raced. "How many girls have you hurt?" I noticed the anger building in his eyes. "You're making this up. This isn't real." Sure it was. Every piece of evidence was more than just a picture or a soundbite. It collated into the reality of his betrayal. "I'm holding up a mirror, Max. Don't you see it?" I challenged. More clips rolled on, more girls speaking up. His mask of innocence cracked, and I felt satisfaction mixed with sadness. He was losing his grip on the evening as he tried to defend his actions, but it was futile. "They must be lying," he shouted, desperation seeping into his voice. "Lying or not, what you did is unacceptable. I'm not letting this slide." I replied calmly, scanning the faces of our friends. Some looked shocked, others angry. It felt surreal to see how quickly opinions shifted, how easily loyalty turned into betrayal under the weight of truth. "You're my brother. How could you do this to me?" he finally exclaimed, something akin to fear breaking through the bravado. "You stopped being my brother the moment you chose to cross that line. You had the chance to be better." In that moment, I thought maybe he'd come to his senses, but then he deflected. "Listen, everyone messes up. I thought I was helping them." The denial stung. "Helping them by hurting them. You don't even understand, do you? This isn't just a mistake, it's a pattern." I paused, letting silence fall in the room. All eyes were on him as he shifted nervously, sweat glistening on his forehead. I turned my laptop off, the darkness swallowing the room as our faces became shadows. "You think this is a game, because it hasn't been one for the girls you've manipulated." The sound of his friends, whispering around him, broke through the tension. "Max," one of them said softly, "is this true?" The question hung in the air. "No, I mean yes, but it's not what you think." I couldn't let him continue like this. "There's a line, Max. You crossed it. You have to own it." Max took a step back, words failing him. "You're betraying me, man. I thought we were friends." "We were, until you decided to hurt others for your own gain," I replied. "This isn't betrayal. This is accountability." He collected himself, his voice barely a whisper. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone." "Well, you did, and now it's time for you to deal with it." Before he could protest further, I sent him a text. "I'm done pretending you're the person I thought you were. I can't trust you anymore. You're on your own now." As I watched him read the message, every ounce of bravado disappeared. His confidence shattered as he started to type furiously, trying to backtrack and make excuses. I turned away, feeling the weight lift off my shoulders. A moment later, my phone buzzed with his reply.